your Pelvic Health Podcast. My name is Susan Winograd, owner and founder of Pelvicore Rehab, and I am so happy to be your guest. Today, we're going to be talking about the anatomy of stress and why it is ruining your sex life and your gut. And I decided to do an episode on this because I will say that of all of the things that clients come back to me, if they have a flare, it is 90% of the time due to increased levels of stress. Your body's first reaction to stress is going to be muscle tension and tightening, but there really is so much more to it. So let's dive in. So we all deal with stress. We really are bombarded with stress all the time. And there are really three kinds of stress that people deal with typically. They deal with physical stress. This would be, falls, injuries, accident, inflammation, poor sleep. We all deal with physical stress. There's chemical stress, which are toxins. We live in a toxic world. There's air pollution, soil pollution, medications, food supply, cleaning products, lotions, perfumes. We're constantly bombarded with chemical toxins. The bottom line is we live in a toxic world. Even the air we breathe or the water we drink is toxic. And there's emotional stress, so job stress, family stress. Emotional stress doesn't mean that there's a magic pill or potion that's going to take away your stress or change the way your family behaves or change how nice your boss is to you or whether you're completely annoyed with someone for cutting you off in traffic. But we can change the way we react to stress and we can change the way that we process it. We're never going to get rid of all the stress in our lives, but we can definitely change the way we handle all of these kinds of stress. So physical stress, chemical stress, and emotional stress. But the bottom line is that in order to deal with the stresses in the right way, you need to have the right tools, you need to have the right guidance, and you also need to be involved in the process. So I find so many times people come and they just want a magic fix, or they want a magic pill or a potion or a quick fix. We live in a really, really fast world. People are into instant gratification, and that's just not the way it works. I, have so many clients that I say, are you open to trying some kind of meditation? And they'll say, oh, I tried meditation a couple times and it didn't work. And my answer to them is nobody's good at it. Nobody is good at meditations. Tibetan monks sitting on a mountain and getting into a transcendental state, which I don't know if they do, and I'm not really sure where Tibetan monks sit. It was just a visual imagery that came into my mind. But I'm sure that meditation and achieving enlightenment did not come naturally to them. They spend a lot of time working on it, and it is absolutely a skill that needs to be developed and repeated over time. And I've said this before, anything that you want your brain to interpret as meaningful needs to be repeated and reinforced several times. But let's get back to stress and the anatomy of stress. I digressed. When we have prolonged stress, when our body is exposed to stress over a long period of time, it affects our immune system. When we have stress over a long period of time, we can lose immune barriers, which can then cause hyperpermeability of our gut, meaning that things that shouldn't be traveling in either direction are able to cross barriers that they should not get, otherwise known as leaky gut. And this is really the first step in the autoimmunity process. So we really, really have to be careful about our gut health because 80% of our immunity is housed in our gut. And as we develop this hyperpermeability of our gut, if we're exposed to stress for a long time, this will lead to an inflammatory cascade in our gut as well. Another thing that happens is when we're exposed to stress for a long time, whether it's physical, chemical, or emotional stress, is that our bodies will begin to increase levels of cortisol that is released. Cortisol is our stress hormone. It's made in the adrenal glands, and it is a stress hormone that's meant to fight inflammation. If you are in an inflammatory state, if you are in a stressed environment over a long period of time and your cortisol levels go up and you don't manage your stress, your adrenal glands will keep pumping and pumping and pumping out cortisol, and you'll end up with a cortisol imbalance. But where else? Let's leave stress for a minute and go back to inflammation for a minute, because that is intricately related to stress as well. Where else does inflammation come from? So inflammation can be caused by stress. Stress decreases our body's ability to fight inflammation. And in addition, our body translates information as a physical stressor. So it's like this two-way street that is a self-perpetuating cycle. So stress can cause inflammation, and inflammation is perceived in your body as stress. So it perpetuates the inflammatory cycle. Another place that we can get inflammation from is food. Some people think they eat clean, and they might eat clean, but eating clean for everybody means different things. So we all know the saying, milk does a body good, right? Everybody knows that. It's been marketed to us so well. And milk can be good for some people, but is milk good for everybody? No, some of us have dairy intolerances. So when we talk about foods, whether you eat clean or not, we really have to be aware and sort of assess and ascertain how certain foods are showing up in our body if you're not feeling well. So if you've eliminated gluten, dairy, and sugar, and you're still not feeling great, then chances are that there are other foods that you may be consuming that you may think may be perfectly healthy, but your body is not. It's not showing up that way in your body. And then, of course, there are people that eat like crap. I was driving with my husband the other day, and we passed by a Chick-fil-A, and I kid you not, I think there was a line of cars a mile long to get Chick-fil-A. Now, full disclosure, I've never had Chick-fil-A. I heard it's delicious, but it's really probably not your healthiest option. And yet, every Chick-fil-A I pass, there's lines and lines of cars. We live in a fast world. Everybody wants a quick meal. Everybody wants to go through a drive-through. Years ago, there used to be some kind of pleasure in making yourself a cup of coffee. And then all these coffee chains popped up, maybe more than a few years ago, and you'd be able to go into a coffee store and have a nice coffee experience, maybe no longer making your own coffee, but really having a different experience buying coffee. And now we're back to the drive-through. So now we're driving through the Starbucks window to get a cup of coffee. We're not even walking into the store anymore. So everybody wants a quick fix. Everybody wants instant gratification. So we really are, as a nation, really not making healthier food choices. Another thing that can cause inflammation actually is too much exercise. So we have so many people that exercise and they don't give their bodies enough time to recover. And then the flip side, we have people that exercise too little and we don't clear the inflammation because we're just not moving our bodies. Our bodies need to have that balance of enough exercise so we're getting everything pumping and we're getting the fluids being pumped back into your circulation and getting stronger. But we also, after a hard workout, need to give our bodies that recovery time. We need to give our bodies time to rehydrate. So again, as I mentioned, our bodies produce cortisol from the adrenal glands to manage inflammation. If our bodies are in a persistent inflammatory state, we're going to start making too much cortisol, and this will fatigue our adrenals and lead to a cortisol imbalance. Another really, really important thing that I don't think people realize is that we have really important neurotransmitters that are produced in the gut, like GABA, like melatonin, like serotonin and dopamine. Serotonin is a really important neurotransmitter that helps fight depression. So if your gut is in a persistent inflammatory state, and if your gut is in a cortisol-rich environment, your body's not going to be able to manufacture those neurotransmitters, those important neurotransmitters that really help to fight depression, that help work with you to keep your circadian rhythm balanced. That's why so many people that have pain, or so many people that have bloating, distension, IBS, and issues like that, they also very often have comorbid depression and anxiety, or they don't sleep as well. They have a hard time falling asleep. They have a hard time staying asleep. And that's because those neurotransmitters that are produced in your gut are being compromised in how they're being produced. Another thing that can happen is that cortisol can suppress hormones such as testosterone, which can affect your libido. It can affect motivation and overall drive. Your cortisol can suppress your thyroid. Why? Because with prolonged levels of high cortisol, your nervous system feels like your gas is on that pedal and you are running full speed ahead. And then your body says, oh my God, I cannot continue at this pace over a prolonged period of time. I need to take my I need to take my foot off the pedal to slow things down. So then your body recruits your thyroid to slow everything down, and then your body can compromise the way that it converts important thyroid hormones. And then all of a sudden you went from having stress to having a cortisol imbalance to not making important neurotransmitters. And then perhaps now you're having symptoms of a thyroid imbalance, which can happen very, very commonly. Another thing that can be affected by high levels of cortisol, stress, having an inflammatory environment in your gut, is that our bodies don't absorb nutrients the way that they should, and then our gut microbiome will be thrown off. So stress can also, another really, really important thing that can happen is that over a prolonged period of cortisol production, our bodies can't sustain making that degree of cortisol for such a long period of time. Your body begins to say, I need another strategy for managing. So your body will actually start using primary sex hormones, and that can cause a hormone imbalance. That's why there are a lot of people who have a hormone imbalance. They go on hormone replacement therapy, but they're still not seeing the results that they want.